Nehemiah chapter 13 Nehemiah's various reforms. On that same day, as the book of Moses was being read to the people, the passage was found that said no Amorite or Moabite should ever be permitted to enter the assembly of God, for they had not provided the Israelites with food and water in the wilderness. Instead, they hired Balaam to curse them. Through our God turned the curse into a blessing. When the passage of the law was read, all those of foreign descent was immediately excluded from the assembly. Before this had happened, Lishbia, the priest who has been appointed as supervisor of the storeroom of the temple of our God, and who was also a relative of Toban, has converted a large storeroom and placed it at the Toban's disposal. The room has previously been used for storage of grain offering, the frankincense, various articles for the temple, and the tithes of grain, new wine, and olive oil, which were prescribed for the Levites, the sinner, and the gatekeeper, as well as of offering for the priest. I was not in Jerusalem at that time, for I had returned to the king Artaxerxes of Babylon in the 32nd year of his reign. So I later asked his permission to return. When I arrived back in Jerusalem, I learned about the evil deed in providing Tobiah with a room in the courtyard of the temple of God. I became very upset and threw all the Tobiah's belongings out of the room. Then I demanded that the room was be purified, and I brought back the article for God's temple, the grain offering, and the frankincense. I was discovered that the Levite has not been given the prescribed portion of food, so they had and the sinners who were to conduct the worship service had all returned to work their field. I immediately confronted the leader and demanded, why has the temple of God has been neglected? Then I called all the Levites back again and restored them to their proper duty. And once more, all the people of Judah began bringing their tithes of grain, new wine, olive oil to the temple of storeroom. I assigned a supervisor for the storeroom, Selemiah the priest, Zadok the scribe, and Padiah one of Levi's. I had appointed Hanan son of Zakah and the grandson of Mattaniah as the assistant. This man had an excellent reputation, and it was their job to make honest distribution to their followed Levites. Remember this good deed, oh my God, and do not forget all that I had faithfully done for the temple of my God and his servants. In those days I saw men of Judah treating out their wine pressed on the Sabbath. They were also bringing grain, loading it on donkey, and bringing their wine, grapes, figs, and all sort of produce to Jerusalem to sell on the Sabbath. So I rebuked them for selling their produce on that day. Some men from Tyre who lived in Jerusalem were bringing in fish and all kinds of merchandise. They were selling it on the Sabbath to the people of Judah and in Jerusalem at that. So I confront the noble of Judah. Why are you profaning the Sabbath in this evil way? I asked, wasn't it just the sort of things that your ancestors did that caused your God to bring all this trouble upon us and our city? Now you bring even more wrath upon Israel by permitting the Sabbath to be desecrated in this way. Then I command that the gate of Jerusalem should be shut at darkness fell every Friday evening, not to be opened until the Sabbath end. I sent some of my own servants to guard the gate so that no merchandise could be brought in on the Sabbath day. The merchants and the tradesmen with the variety of warriors camped outside Jerusalem once or twice, but I spoke sharply to them and said, what are you doing out here, camping around the wall? If you do this again, I will arrest you. And that was the last time they came on the Sabbath. Then I commanded the Levites to purify themselves and to guard the gate in order to preserve the holiness of the Sabbath. Remember this good deed also, O my God. Have compassion on me according to your great and unfailing love. About the same time, I realized that some of the men of Judah had married women from Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. Furthermore, half their children spoke the language of Ashdod, of some other people, and could not speak the language of Judah at all. So I confronted them and called down curse on them. I beat some of them and pulled out the hair. I made them swear in the name of God that they would not let the children intermarry with the pagan people of the land. Wasn't this exactly what led King Solomon of Israel into sin? I demanded. There was no king from any nation who could compare to him, and God loved him and made him king over all Israel. But even he was led into sin by his foreign wives. How could you even think of committing this sinful deed and acting unfaithful toward God by marrying foreign women? One of the sons of Joah, son of Elisha, the highest priest, had married the daughter of Sinab of the Horite, so I banished him from my presence. Remember them, O my God, for they have been defying the priesthood and the solemn vow of the priests and the Levites. I purged out everything foreign and assigned tasks to the priests and the Levites, making certain that each knew his work. I also made sure that the supply of wood for the altar and the first portion of the harvest were brought at the proper time. Remember this in my favor, O my God. Esther chapter 1 The King's Banquet. This event happened in the day of King Xerxes, who reigned over 127 provinces stretched from India to Ethiopia. At that time, Xerxes ruled his empire from his royal throne at the forest of Susa. In the third year of his reign, he gave the banquet for all his noble and official. He invited all the military officers of Persia and Media, as well as the prince and noble of the province. The celebration lasted 180 days, a triumphant display of the opulent wealth of his emperor and the pomp and the splendor of his majesty. When it was over, the king gave the banquet for all the people, from the greatest to the least, who were in the forest of Susa. It lasted for 7 days and was held in the courtyard of the palace garden. The courtyard was beautiful, decorated with white cotton, satin, and blue hanging, which were fastened with white lined cord and pure purple ribbon to silver ring embedded in marble pillar. Gold and silver couch stood on a mosaic paved of porphyry marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Drinks were served in gold goblet of many designs, and there were an abundance of royal wine reflect the king's generosity. By edict of the king, no limit were placed on the drinking, for the king has instructed all his palace officials to serve each man as much as he wanted. At the same time, Queen Vashti gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. Queen Vashti disposed. On the seventh day of the fast, when King Xerxes was in high spirit because of the wine, he told the 7 women who attended him, Menabila, Homer, Bigab, Zeggar, and Kasha, to bring Queen Vashti to him with the royal crown on her head. He wanted the noble and all the other men to gather on her beauty, for she was a very beautiful woman. But when they confessed the king's order to Queen Vashti, he refused to come. This made the king furious, and he burned with anger. He immediately consulted with his wise advisor, who knew all the peasants' law and the custom, for he always asked their advice. The name of this man were Kashmir, Sheber, Abba, Tashia, Mamera, Mega, and Mega, 7 noble of Passion and Media. They met with the king regularly and held the highest position in the empire. What must be done to Queen Vashti? The king demanded. What penalty does the law provide for a queen who refused to obey the king's order, properly sent through his images? Mama can answer the king and his noble. Queen Vashti has wronged not only the king, but also every noble and citizen throughout your emperor. Women everywhere will begin to despise their husband when they learn the Queen Vashti has refused to appear before the king. Before this day is out, the wives of all the king's nobles throughout Persia and the Media will hear that what the queen did, and will start treating their husband in the same way. There will be no end to their contempt and anger. So if it pleases the king, we suggest that you issue a written decree, a law of Persia and the Media that cannot be revoked. It should order that the queen Vashti be forever banished from the presence of King Xerxes, and that the king should choose another queen more worthy than she. When this decree is published throughout the king's vast empire, husbands everywhere, whatever their rank, will receive the proper respect from their wives. The king and his nobles thought this made good sense, so he followed the Megwin's counsel. He sent letters to all parts of the emperor, to each province in his own script and language, proclaimed that every man should be the ruler of his own home and should say whatever he pleased. Esther chapter 2. Esther became king, but after Esther's anger has subsided, he began thinking about the vanity and what he had done and the degrees he had made. So his person attendant suggests, let us search the emperor to find a beautiful young virgin for the king. Let the king appoint an agent to each province to bring these beautiful young women into the royal harem at the forest of Susa. Hagar, the king of women in charge of the harem, will see that they are all given the beauty treatment. After that, the young woman who had most pleased the king will be made queen instead of Vashti. The advice was very appealing to the king, so he put the plan into effect. At the time, there was a Jewish man in forest of Susa whose name was Mordecai, son of Jair. He was from the tribe of Benjamin and was a descendant of Kish and Shimei. His family has been among those who, with King Joachim of Judah, has been exiled from Jerusalem to Babylon by King Lepcher. This man had a very beautiful and lovely young cousin, Hadassah, who was also called Esther. When her father and mother died, Mordecai adopted her into his family and raised her as his own daughter. As a result of the king's decrees, Esther, along with many other young women, was brought to the king's harem at the forest of Susa and placed in Haggai's care. Haggai was very impressed with Esther and treated her kindly. He quickly ordered a special menu for her and provided her with beautiful treatment. He also assigned her 7 maids specially chosen from the king's palace, and he moved her and her maid into the best place in the harem. Esther has not told anyone of his nationality and family background because Mordecai had directed her not to do so. Every day, Mordecai would take a walk near the courtyard of the harem to find out about Esther and what was happened to her. Before each young woman was taken to king's bed, she was given the prescribed 12 months of beauty treatments. 6 months with oil of myrrh, followed by 6 months with special perfume and ornament. When it was time for her to go to the king's palace, she was given her choice of whatever clothing and jewelry she wanted to take from the harem. That evening she was taken to the king's private room, and the next morning she was brought to the second harem, where the king's wives lived. There she would be under the care of Sagaz, the king's in charge of the concubine. She would never go to the king again unless he had specially joined her and requested her by name. Esther was the daughter of Abihai, who was Mordecai's uncle. Mordecai had adopted his younger cousin's Esther. When it was Esther's turn to go to the king, she accepted the advice of Hagar, the emirate in charge of the harem. She asked for nothing except what he suggested, and she was admired by everyone who saw her. Esther was taken to the king Xerxes at the royal palace in early winter of the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther more than any of the other young women. He was so delighted with her and that he set the royal crown on her head and declared her queen instead of Vashti. To celebrate the occasion, he gave a great banquet in Esther's honor for all his nobles and officials, declaring a public holiday for the province and giving generous gifts to everyone. Even after all the young women had been transferred to the second harem and Mordecai had become a palace officer, Esther continued to keep her family background and nationality a secret. She was still followed Mordecai's direction just as she did when she lived in his home. Mordecai's loyalty to the king. One day, as Mordecai was on duty at the king's gate, 2 of king's enemies, Bigla and Tessera, who were guarded at the door of the king's private quarter, became angry at the king and Xerxes and plot to assassinate him. But Mordecai heard about the plot and gave the information to Queen Esther. She then told the king about it and gave Mordecai credit for the report. When an investigation was made and Mordecai's story was found to be true, the two men were impaled on a sharpened pole. This was all recorded in the book of the history of King Esther's reign. And then we go to the chapter 3. So those 3 chapters is the last chapter about the Nehamia, is about the record the Israel people say again after Mordecai go back to the king, and then when he come back, he found those people doing the thing and the stupid things again, and he restore it again. So this is like a give us a lesson. Israel people like a standard. Not only Israel people, everybody in the world is like a standard. They make sin, they repent, and they sin again. They never end it. So that is remind us we should have a strong spirit and a heart to follow God. And then the Esther chapter 1 and chapter 2 is another new story. It's about talking about how Esther becomes the queen of King Xerxes. And this story didn't end yet. Alright, so that's today's Bible learning. Hope everybody like it. God bless everyone. Let's see you tomorrow.